Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our December hearings for the Town of Canandaigua Zoning Board of Appeals. For those who are watching by Zoom, we have a new audio system. For those here in attendance, it's right here, the large speaker with the green light in the middle. So if those in attendance cannot hear, let us know in chat or raise your hand, and we'll try to do a little bit better of making sure that our voices are directed in that direction. We begin with a procedure of the month where we recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we have a brief moment of silence for our servicemen and women. So if you please join with us in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for that. On tonight's agenda, we had a continued public hearing that has been adjourned at the request of the applicant. So I assume the board members saw that communication with Westbrooks?
No, I didn't.
No. Yeah, they just asked to continue again to January.
They asked to be tabled.
How many times can you table?
Well, it's always at the board's discretion. We can require them to go forward. That's why I wanted to raise it tonight and see if there was any issue. We can deem an application abandoned. This is only their second request. I don't think that we're at that point yet.
And I just was curious if there was any limitation.
So we'll have that on the agenda for January. Our next public hearing, and I believe we have the applicant on screen, right, Shauna?
Yep, Jeff. I'm just gonna pull up his project. Jeff is here and his Rich, his engineer.
So who from the applicant would like to speak to this application first?
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, that's Jeff.
It is. It's Jeff Morrell with Morrell Builders, for the record. And I'm hoping this evening is an easy one for the ZBA. The variance that we're asking.
Yeah, before you get going too much, I just want to put a couple things on the record. I just wanted to kind of know who the owner would be here. So
Sure.
This application is for property that is going to be combined essentially. They're requesting an area variance to have 2 road frontages on 1 parcel. So they're asking for administrative lot line adjustment. When this project was in front of the PRC, I spoke out publicly, not against this project per se, but against a neighboring project to the south that could potentially have been tied in with this project. And I know Jeff said at the time that it wouldn't be tied into this project. But because, you know, as a landowner in that neighborhood, I spoke out against a related project. And Jeff may say, well, it's not even related. Out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse myself from this application. And so I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Saylor to lead the hearing on this. I just want to put that on the record, Jeff.
Sure. Thank you for that.
Okay, I guess
I didn't let you know
I'll
that.
take
in
that
advance.
ball and we'll go with it.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and present your issue with us, Jeff, please?
Sure. I'm hoping this is a very simple one. You know, we've completed a full process of preliminary approvals for this project and final approvals for this project. It was a very healthy public process, and we came to an excellent outcome. And as I mentioned, have now received approval, both prelim and final. And in our PRC meeting, we were completing the process of doing the subdivide of this and having to go through that subdivide process independently with the planning board. And the PRC had said instead of doing that, it was advised that they would just do a simple administrative resub process instead. That basically avoids the official subdivide that takes place when you have to do seeker and planning board approval for a simple lot line adjustment. The code is being revised on this issue in the next couple of months. So normally we wouldn't need to be before the ZBA. So I'm hoping that this evening it's just an administrative process. And in essence, we're combining the Wilkin parcel with our parcel to create approximately 92 acres. That was what was approved. And the purpose of being before the ZBA is that one element in the code that's ultimately going to be revised coming up in Q1 requires a variance for the fact that the parcel is on more than one road frontage in a residential subdivide application. So this will all go away very shortly, because once we file our approved final section 1 map, which will be coming up imminently, the entire parcel will be one anyway. But due to the necessity of closing on the parcel with the Wilkin family in this calendar year, that's why we're before the ZBA, just asking for that variance relief so that we can specifically close in this tax calendar year for the Wilkin family. Hopefully that's in a nutshell for your comfort. I believe that this issue won't be before the ZBA in the future, because I think the code is being corrected shortly. And I don't know if Shauna wants to speak about that specifically, but if the board is comfortable, I'm happy to answer any other questions. But if the board's comfortable, I'm ready to tackle whatever you've got before me.
Shauna, I think it would be helpful to have.
Right, so absolutely, thank you, Jeff. The code reads right now that double frontage lots are prohibited where employed to prevent vehicular access to major traffic streets. So this board has actually seen this multiple times where you've granted variances. I think the last one was Westbrook's piece by the solar farm on County Road 10. Yeah. And I'm not sure, well, actually, John, we talked about this before because John's on the ordinance committee about where this actually kind of was born for a specific project years ago. And it does cause undue hardship for certain applicants. So specifically residential. So we brought it before the ordinance committee asking to leave it in, but include the language that residential parcels would be able basically to have double frontage lots. And that public hearing was set last night for the end of January to amend the text and the zoning code. So
To be voted on at the end of January.
it will be voted on
By the
at
board.
the end, right, absolutely. The public hearing is set for the end of January. So the recommendation by the ordinance committee was to change that text. So,
I just was a little bit confused looking at the map that we have as to, we're talking about 2 roads.
right, so we're talking about Paris Street
Yeah,
and we're talking about 21.
okay.
Could you point out where those road cuts are?
I'm gonna pull up his actual
I don't
site
see them
plan.
on that map.
Yeah, I don't either.
It's hard to see it here. Let me get his site plan. That's just the plat, so let me pull it up. There's so many plans in this file. Site plan. It's easier to see here. Let me show you. Do you see that? Let me blow it up. So Paris Street here, 21 here, and then a little tiny snip right up to the north. This is the new lot.
It's where the road cuts.
Well, there's a cut on 21. Here, I'll show you.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yep. Which is right hand. Right here,
Okay.
John. You see that? And then Parish.
So it's actually a through road from one
It
road
is.
to the other.
Goes over to right here. That's the third phase. And again, to mirror Jeff's comments, he did receive final approval this month from the planning board.
Right, so just for the ZBA's understanding, this code compliance issue, even if the code were not changed in the upcoming year to remove that verbiage in your overall code, upon filing of our final section 1 map, that road frontage issue no longer is germane in this issue as well, because it becomes basically all one parcel as soon as we file our subdivision map. And so really what we're looking at is the ZBA allowing this closing to take place in this calendar year, and avoiding us having to go through the extra hoops in the planning board process as we were directed by the PRC when we sat before them before. Basically, the PRC directed us to say, just go complete the variance process when our final one is approved. And I believe the administrative lot line adjustment is ready to be completed by town staff this week.
Now, where is the administrative lot line being changed?
So the lot line will be over on the west side, basically taking off Wilkins' piece.
Shauna, do you have the annexation map that we sent in for the lot line adjustment? That might make it a little bit clearer.
Right here, actually.
Right.
This one is just the Wilkins parcel. We've got one that has the lot line adjustment with the combined parcel.
Yeah. So in essence, there's 80 acres to the south of Paris Street Extension, and there's 40 acres to the north of Paris Street Extension. So the lot line adjustment is basically moving, it's right at the Paris Street Extension line.
Right, so we're basically shifting this line down.
Down,
Yeah, so it's 1 and 1.
okay. Anyone else have any questions? there anyone in the audience who has any questions, either here or at home? Hearing none. Jeff, are you comfortable with what you presented?
Yeah, I'm comfortable. I'm obviously speaking on behalf of the Wilkin family. You know, it's very important for them to complete the closing process in the month of December. Obviously, their family, it's owned by about 5 different people. So that's why I appreciated the board's consideration this month, because without that consideration, it creates an immediate issue for the Wilkin family, because they need to close it in this tax calendar year. So outside of that, if the board has any questions specifically, I'm happy to address them.
I don't see anybody jumping up with questions. Okay. If there are no further questions, and it's okay with you, we'll go ahead and close the discussion and the public hearing. And as is our usual procedure, we usually will vote on an issue the night we presented it. We do have 62 days to make a decision, however, but we'll certainly try to get that done tonight. You're welcome to stay around, and because we will, after we have the other presentations, we will have a discussion among ourselves, and I think shouldn't be a problem getting it voted on tonight. So we'll close that public hearing. Bring Terrence back.
Okay, thank you.
Unrecuse you.
So our final public hearing tonight is for property at 5692 Vanell Road. The owners are requesting an area variance for a side setback of 20 feet when 40 feet is the minimum. So who would like to speak to this application? Do you want to? Go ahead, I'll give you a shot.
Okay, never done this before, so.
Don't worry,
Okay.
this is a pretty easy process. You
All
just
right,
tell us
sounds good.
a little bit about your project, and then we'll jump in with questions.
Okay,
Wait till she brings it
Well,
up.
if she brings up the site plan, you'll see we have a very narrow lot. It's 6.8 acres, only 199 feet of street front, and then it's long and narrow, and actually gets narrower as it goes back. The house sits about 79, well, 100, here's the picture of the back of the house. So you'll see it's long and narrow. And we would like to add a mudroom and a garage onto the right side of that house there where the gravel is. So in order to do that, we only have about 65 feet from the house to the property line on that side. So in order to add a mudroom and a garage, we would need to get closer to that side setback. To the property line and 20 feet is where it's been drawn out, we can get a 20-foot side setback there. Because right where the house is, it's only like 178 feet wide, and down at the street is 199 feet wide. So we lose some of that narrowness.
Site plan.
Okay, so I drove by the property. I agree, there's some narrowness you're facing there. We do have a letter, I don't know if you've seen that from
We
Patricia
also have
Wilder.
another concern that you can't go behind the house with the garage because of the hill.
Yep.
So that photograph was taken from a hill. It's about a 45-degree angle. It's only about 20 feet from the back of the house to the hill. And it also can't go on the other side, as you can't cross the
Sean, can you quote the contours that they submitted?
septic.
It's in our file. So I was just gonna say, not that it's a determinant factor, but we do look to see what are the positions and feelings of those in the neighborhood. We have the one letter from Patricia Williger saying she doesn't have any concern.
Mhm.
Have you heard anything from any of the other neighbors or spoken with
No.
them about the project?
Is she the
It's
one,
a
is she the
dead
one
end
from the
road,
property that would be that it would be closest to?
Right,
Okay,
the person who wrote the letter was the one who was the closest to it, yes,
Yeah.
She's on the north,
the other side,
over here.
South,
down.
South, got
Yeah.
it.
she's down here.
So, yeah, just as they're saying, it does slope up pretty steeply there, it's flatter down towards the road, but there is some limited space. Any questions from the board on this application?
Just a comment, Terrence, Chris Jensen also wrote an opinion on this that was in the file.
yeah, I thought it was interesting, if they made it a separate building, it would be fine.
Yeah, if you separate it,
Yeah.
I mean, you could
So we
separate by inches.
originally had looked at doing a separate building, but had to go to 1,000 square foot to get the height that we wanted. So it was either make a much larger garage to get a 20-foot height, or attach it. And so it's like one or the other. I'd either have to get a variance to get my height restriction, or a variance to get the side setback.
He just keeps finding more things for the ordinance committee to look at, right, John?
Yeah.
Well, if I could add, I think Chris, you might remember Chris, what he was saying, it's like from the mudroom to the garage, we have a canopy, so like a covering from the mudroom to the garage. So it's like, well, okay, if we stop the canopy 5 feet off of the mudroom, the little roof, 5 feet, and as long as that end of that canopy is 5 feet away from the garage, you could do this. And I'd like, it's pretty silly to have a little
Right.
patio cover coming off the mudroom. As long as it didn't connect to the garage, we could be 20 feet.
But then we could only have a 16-foot height with less than 1,000 square foot garage. So we've looked at all of the options available to us, and this seems the best one.
One last thing I'll add is that you can see how the house is tilted to the
It's
property
angled.
line, the yellow property line. So it's not the entire garage butting up against the 20-foot setback.
Just that corner.
Yeah, just that corner.
Yeah, the back. So we just hope to get as much room.
Okay. Well, there's nobody else here physically with us, so any comments or questions on this application for the board from anyone in attendance virtually? No? You haven't heard Judy, you know?
That's Fritz Cermak, he just generally is quiet.
All right, okay. All right, so the way this process works is this is our public hearing for us to listen to the applicant, gain information also for anybody who resides in the town to give comment or ask questions. Obviously, there's nobody else here. But procedurally, the next step in this is what we can call closing the public hearing. At that point, no new information comes in unless the board voted to reopen it. And then we'll go into deliberations and talk about your application and vote on it. But at that point, we don't receive any more information from you or any comment from anybody else. So we always ask if the applicant is comfortable closing the application.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So with that, we will close. Legally, we have 62 days to render a decision from the date we close a public hearing, but as I just said, we'll deliberate and vote tonight. All right. So Chet, it's back to you.
Okay.
With morale deliberations, I'll sit this one out.
Okay. I think we've had the material presented. Are there any discussion that any of the board have?
I'm just, on a general principle, I'm not a big fan of legislating from the bench. I mean, if this thing is gonna take care of itself, and I'm sorry for the tax issue with the Wilkins, but if the code's gonna change the code, and there we are, as far as I'm concerned. I'd like to see the code change first, if that's what needs to happen. That's just my opinion.
Anyone else?
I see it as an administrative issue that the developer is going to change the parcels anyways. So we're faced with the road regardless. And the fact that I sat on the ordinance committee and we did hear this and we were all comfortable with it. I'm comfortable with this particular application. So.
I think a point was well taken by Dave, but it seems like everybody is acting in good faith on this, and based on what's been occurring at ordinance, it's part of this is people are a prisoner to the schedule and how soon votes can come up and things like that, and given those variables that the applicants can't control, I'm go along with what John said.
Yeah, I mean, I understand certainly Dave's point. I guess I hate to see somebody have a significant impact on their whole planning process by an administrative delay. But
Well, this doesn't have to be a unanimous vote, does it?
I don't believe so.
No.
There's no denial.
There's no. Any more discussion? I'm gonna call the question.
Applicant is requesting an area variance to have 2 road frontages on one parcel. Shall the applicant be granted an area variance for 2 road frontages on one parcel? John Casey,
Yes.
Bob Hilliard.
Yes.
David Emery,
No.
Kelly's not here. Chip Saylor,
Yes.
motion passes.
And you've noted my recusal,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now with Kelly not being excused, we didn't hear from her. How is that generally noted? No,
Just absent.
just absent, okay.
Yeah.
Absent. Okay. Great.
Okay, so motion passed, and I guess based on, I don't have that thing here with me, based on the
I've got it
information.
for you, Chip, you can use. If you don't mind, in the COVID era, touching another person's computer.
Error, it's not, it's error something.
We'll hand sanitize that.
Based on the information depicted in the drawings and descriptions presented at tonight's meeting, benefit to the applicant does not outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood or community, and therefore, I've got the wrong place here, you got me on the negative. How do I get over to the approval?
Yeah, this one you've got to do the double finger scroll.
Okay.
Yeah, those are all your approvals.
It will not have an adverse effect on the property or neighborhood. I think the major thing here is, and we may need to wordsmith it a bit, is it is an administrative change that is required and is in the works in the town, and has been already approved by the ordinance committee.
I can work with Chris tomorrow.
I'm sorry.
I can work with Chris Nadler if I need to.
Okay, yeah, and I guess it becomes a moot point, I guess, once the ordinance is changed. Anything else, anybody? Unusual one.
Maybe it'd be worth mentioning that the project's already been approved approved by both the PRC and the planning board.
That's right, yeah, okay. Yeah, if Chris wants the wordsmith that a little bit.
Okay.
And I guess we would need our conditions to be the same, as usual. That's gonna be a little different too.
Yeah. I mean, as a recused member, I just,
Well, I'm asking you as an informed community member.
I just say that our normal condition of requiring building permits within 1 year probably is inapplicable for this sort of project. But I think our other standard condition of requiring that, or stating that it's subject to the plans as presented.
Right.
They change to those plans and validate the variance, likely still applies to this project like every other. But you guys can discuss
Yeah, I
that.
think likely the project, I would assume, would be moving ahead within a year. Maybe that's not unreasonable to put in there.
Agreed.
Not gonna be completed.
Yeah, phase 1 is set to start early spring.
Okay. Okay, we'll leave it at that, but we'll have Chris wants to get back to me on that.
Thanks, Chip. All right, now to Vanell Road. I mean, this is a pretty rural area out there. When I drove by it, it doesn't look like there's any other place to put this accessory structure, garage combo, and it seems pretty reasonable to me, and the neighbor's okay with it, so I have no concerns with this.
I don't have any either, really.
I would a comment for a rookie presenter. You were very impressive, and you stole my question because we always will ask, what were your options? Could you have accomplished this without a variance?
Right.
And based on the contours and all that, I think that was, that was self-evident.
John, did you have anything you want
No,
to share?
I'm
on this
comfortable,
one?
particularly with the neighbor being comfortable with it. That convinced me that this is a reasonable request.
Dave, any thoughts on your end?
Chris Jensen letter said it all to me, so.
All right, I think we're ready to call this
Okay.
one.
The applicant is requesting a 20-foot side setback area variance when 40 feet is required by town code. Shall the applicant be granted a 20-foot side setback area variance? John Casey,
Yes,
Bob Hilliard.
Yes.
David Emery,
Yes,
Dr. Saylor,
Yes,
Terrence Robinson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, for our decision is based on the descriptions and drawings provided at the public hearing held on December 21st, as well as prior submissions made to the town's development office. And the development office will fill in the dates of all those submissions. And the board has determined that the benefit to the applicant does outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood or community, and therefore the variance is granted. The board's decision is based upon the following specific findings of fact. First, that the parcel has unique topography and contours that limit the location of the proposed structure in any other area. There is a neighbor to the south who has said that she does not have any conflict with this application, no opposition. This approval of this variance will not adversely affect the property or the neighborhood. It's a rural neighborhood. The home is set off, and I was looking at, Sean, you can put in exactly, I think it was 176 feet from the road.
It is.
Something like that. Won't impede any sight lines or view sheds. And the board has determined that there is sufficient space for the facility to be maintained without crossing the property line to the south. I think you guys agree with that, right? 20 feet is sufficient for maintenance, okay. And then we'll go on to our standard conditions. The first is that the variance granted specific to the most recent plan submitted to the zoning board of appeals. Any change in the plan shall invalidate the variance. And I hope you understand that's just because we have to approve something based on a plan. If it changes, then it could be different how we view it, so any.
I do have a question about that.
Okay,
Could I ask you now?
so
So
go ahead.
as far as to the neighbor, no possible change. It would obviously, we would stick by the 20-foot. But it may need to, the garage may need, because of the hill and its wetness the wetness that the hill contributes, it may need to come forward or back a little. So not changing any square footage, just position. And is that an issue?
Yes, our approvals are always conditioned to the plan submitted. It's actually unlawful, the case law says, for us to approve a plan that's later changed by what they call field modifications without the zoning board having had the chance to review them or consider them in the approval. So that's why we put that in there, just so people are aware. It's standard case law these days, but we like to have it there so people see it up front.
That's true, even if a slight modification they might make would make no further need for a variance or
Yeah,
even worth the variance was less.
What the case law says is that even though you're not expanding the variance request, any change to the plan could create different circumstances that the board may have considered. So for example, and I put it in there as one of the things I thought was relevant, that it's set far back off the road, right? Let's say, I know you're not gonna do this, but let's say that somehow the project, was moved now 100 feet closer to the road, and that's not feasible or possible here in this context. But you can see how, even though it wouldn't be increasing the variance request, it could change how we might view the project and whether we view that now as a substantial or variance, or what impact it would have on the neighborhood. So that's why you gotta,
I wouldn't go further. I will definitely say that it would go back
yeah,
possibly. Just something I'm talking to the excavator about
Yeah.
with his concern of
Yeah.
the moisture. So being that I wouldn't be moving closer to a street and visibility to.
Yeah.
That's still a problem. What is the option? It would,
the option is that you would come back in front of the zoning board and say, there's been this change, whatever that change is. I think you've seen tonight, there's no real opposition to this project.
okay.
And then you would approve it subject to that change.
And he doesn't have to wait a year. If he finds out there's a
65-day vote in
difficulty.
that case, right?
No,
But, so just so that we're clear, because, I was thinking, okay, based on this talk with the excavator, having the architect, okay, how does it affect the roof line of the garage and the mudroom? I was gonna say, okay, we'll pay for that to be redrawn. It'd be moving back the garage so that it could stay drier. Because what we're talking about now is with the current plan, to have to dig into the earth, which of course, the more you're digging in, the closer you're gonna be to, the back wall against the hill, needing a wet wall kind of thing. So if we keep it where it is higher and set it back. So this is just something new, and I'm like, okay, well, we're not affecting the property, relation to the property line, side property line, just the westerly position of the garage towards the hill.
Yep.
So if it's just a matter of meeting again with Shauna and Chris, if a drawing is done, that drawing just needs to be presented and approved.
it has to come back in front of the zoning
It
board.
has to come back in another month.
Okay, this is the zoning.
Yeah,
Yes.
so, there's a couple of ways that could be done. Let me just finish my final condition and we'll keep this going before I forget. The second one is that the variance is conditioned on building permits being issued within 1 year of the date the variance is granted. And if they were to obtain building permits within the 1 year, shall invalidate the variance. So that's the decision. So for you guys, probably what would be best, and I'm not giving you legal advice, we can't do that, right? We're just having a neighborly discussion here.
Exactly.
Is there's a couple different ways that it can come back in front of the board. One is if that there's what we deem as a substantial change, which makes it a new application. The better, probably more streamlined approach for you guys would be for us to, vote to renew the application, approve a modification, and then vote on that renewal. And that has to be a unanimous vote for us to reopen or reconsider a prior decision.
Okay, what does that involve exactly?
There's an application that you can make with the
Okay.
town on that.
It's the same process
Okay.
in that It would have to be advertised.
New
and set a public
application,
hearing.
fee, put a sign again.
Well, that's what, if we make it the same one, we can avoid the new fee.
We could, but we still have to set the public hearing.
You still have to do
Yeah,
that, you
we
still have to
have
give
to
notice of
go
that, yeah.
Well, builders planned for January like 15th, so I guess that might be a little tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just do
That-
the wall.
It's always the calendar that
Okay,
in builder schedules these days, there's no room
yeah,
for
Right.
changes. Okay,
okay,
sounds good.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
All right.
Thank you.
have a good evening.
You too.
Good to see you. What's left of it?
Well, today is the shortest day of the year, right?
Is it?
Oh.
Yep,
Shortest day, longest night.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not the shortest workday, apparently.
No.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So in terms of board business, no request for rehearing, correct?
Correct.
And no referrals from the town board.
Nothing.
Anything from the ordinance committee, John? No? That's the time?
No.
We do need to have a motion on the November 16 minutes.
So-
Someone have a motion to approve those minutes? Okay, Chip moves a second by
And Bob.
Bob. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? No nays, okay. And then Shauna, do you want to review next, or preview, not review, but
Preview, we
next month?
have,
We'll have Westbrook hopefully, right?
I haven't heard about Westbrook. Haven't heard.
I think
And then we do need, that's a
we
question
should tell them
I,
that, we would like to have this heard, rather than continue to adjourn. If they still don't know what they're doing, they can withdraw the application rather than us continuing to carry it on our agenda. Because the board, kind of builds out how much time, how many applications it's gonna hear out of a month based upon what's on the agenda. They're really not gonna go forward, or there's some change in plan, it'd be better just withdraw and then come back and do that.
The other part of it, I think, is, you'd like to have reviewed it fairly soon before the meeting, so every month you go and review it again, and then they, 3 hours before the meeting, they pull it.
right, and this is a kind of a highly visible project where the neighbors are calling, wondering what's happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's allowed, that's right.
Yeah, there is a variance application on Dugway Road for lot frontage. And I think that's all we have so far.
yeah, going along with what Chip said, because this is so unusual. I have all my notes because I thought we were, initially would be doing it tonight, but I can't start like we never had time elapsed. We have to be brought back up to speed by the presenters with that. And I think that they need to have that understanding that we need to, it's almost like represent, rather than them having the, assuming that we're with it and up to speed. I don't think that would be in our best interest.
I agree too with the timeline in terms of you reviewing and putting your time into looking at it. And I'm wondering if we give applicants a deadline to withdraw or to table, can they do it up until the morning of the meeting or
Yeah,
the night before?
Was there an email sent out?
They, Venenzia let me
it
know.
was yesterday, right?
That was yesterday. Yeah.
Yes, I didn't see the email.
I actually just sent it to Terrence. I guess I should have sent it to the whole board.
Oh, okay.
I apologize for that.
I was gonna pull, I thought, and I could be wrong, I thought we had something in our rules of procedure about this issue. I'm just reviewing them quickly here. It's not directly on point, but it kind of is along this vein, that we do have a provision in there that says that the applicant may submit additional information no later than 7 days prior to the meeting. That's when we have an opportunity to have it and review it. By the same token, we don't really want them canceling without us being able to have notice, sufficient notice so we're not preparing. Now, it doesn't say that in there. Maybe that's something that the board might want to review in the new year when you do your rules of procedure.
I think it's a good idea.
I do too.
Just check if there's anything else. Yeah, because we have, 4 new applications is our max we consider each month, that's in there.
That's certainly a consideration for the other people who are applying and have gotten all their stuff in and are gonna go through with it. If they get knocked, the fifth person gets knocked off because their application's there, why? That's not very fair.
It's almost like people that are doing this need to be told that, they want to postpone, they can be bumped. They shouldn't be starting at the front of the line. It should be the last, in other words, they could be number 4 that month, but they should never be number 1 if they've chosen to postpone.
Of course, they are continued.
Well, that's a good question, yeah.
thing, so that
So I did find that we do have one, this is what it says, I'll read it to you. Should the ZBA, after consulting with the applicant, decide to continue the application, the ZBA will identify a date when the public hearing will be reopened. An application may be amended no later than the second meeting following the initial presentation of an application. The ZBA shall close the public hearing at the 3rd meeting if the applicant has failed to supplement their application as requested by the ZBA.
Okay,
So
be next meeting,
this is
right?
already the 3rd.
this is the 3rd right now.
I think we should tell them, it's right there that we're considering this application closed.
Good.
I mean, really, this is something for you guys going forward, because I won't be on that one. You
Yeah.
think that's too harsh? Should we
No,
give
it's
one
in
more
writing, and they're privy to, this isn't a secret.
Yeah, but nobody reads them.
Well, I can always let them know and send them.
And I guess since that probably wasn't relayed to them at this point, for this particular one, why you could let them know, that if they got one more chance and that they're out. We're already extending it 1 for them.
That's really for you guys to decide.
This is the 3rd, I have no problem with saying no. But I
I don't have a problem with it either, but
I kind of lean towards what you were saying though, Chip. I mean, it's not like we have, at least from what I just heard, a lot of applicants lining up at the door, so I don't think that they're doing any harm to the community. But I do think, as you just mentioned, in the future, we should at least let the applicant know that, you're only allowed 2 continuations before the 3rd one, we'd be forced to close the application.
So-
if you could relay that to them, that we will extend them 1 more time, but we're going beyond already what our rules suggest. I suppose one of the major issues with that is they have to do it again, they have to pay another fee.
that's, I don't think it's right to be unfair, but I mean, this application over the course of time has to be like a world record. I'm talking, you're going back before.
We're going back to what, 2006 or
The
something?
same thing has been presented multiple times. Yeah, and that's what I was also going to review with them. You guys can take this for what it's worth, is that, in my world, there's a lot of value to precedent in terms of judicial decisions, and there's already ZBA decisions on these properties, and I think those should be looked at closely. Anything else, Sean?
No, I will convey that to the applicant.
All right, well then we have 6:49. I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Second by John. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay.
So was this is your last